Hi, welcome to the Macabre Emporium.
Let me get my emotional support cat.
Okay.
To be quiet and keep the kids quiet, since he was getting anxiety and he didn't want to kill children.
Gertrude's daughter even got to join in on what they considered fun.
Tell us about the giant turtle.
Alan never showed up, nor was he ever heard from again beyond that point. Welcome back to Macabre Emporium. We are now on episode 14.
Yes, episode 14, and if this is your first episode since you don't like to start at the beginning, welcome.
So have we done anything fun lately?
Other than watch the premiere of The Last of Us.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I want to give a special thank you to Noodle. You know why. I don't need to broadcast it. But that was awesome.
Yeah. So, what did you think of The Last of Us premiere?
I thought it was pretty good, actually.
Yeah. I never played the games, but I just wanted to watch it because Pascal something...
Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, I don't know why I wanted to say Pascal's his first name.
It's Pedro.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, the Mandalorian is in it.
The kick-ass guy from Game of Thrones.
Right. I was telling you earlier before I started watching, I would like to see him play some kind of role as a Witcher too. I think he'd do really good with that. Because there's like 4 different schools, if I remember correctly, so they could basically make a storyline for him out of one of them. He'd more likely probably be out of the school of the cat, or another one out of the school of the wolf. So maybe if Netflix doesn't cancel it after it bombs after season 4, since Henry Cavill will no longer be in it. Yeah. We'll see.
Who did they get to replace him?
Liam Hemsworth,
Oh, God,
I
yeah.
think, or his brother. I don't remember. Kind of disappointed me that they switched him out because they were starting into the Wild Hunt, which is where the 3rd game takes place.
And that was the one you just recently kind of finished playing, right? Yeah.
So I was excited to see all of that come up in The Witcher, and then it's like, sorry guys, I'm out. But I get why he did it, because they didn't want to listen to him and his fandom with it. He's a huge Witcher fanboy, I guess you could say.
Fanboy.
From what I understand, he would actually take the costume home and wear it.
Oh my God.
To get it, to make it look like it was more worn and things like that.
You know that motherfucker was LARPing in his backyard.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised.
Toss a coin to your whipper.
Or your sweeper, you mean, maybe?
I was talking about the whipper guy, but
yeah, Jacques the Whipper.
Yep, that one. Yeah. But also to your sweeper. And shame on you if you don't understand where that came from.
Yeah, if you don't understand where that is, you need to go back and listen 2 episodes ago for a Victorian episode.
Burn!
Because I'm sure the image that I released in the Facebook group probably confused you if you hadn't listened to it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to get that out because it was stuck in my head, even though it's a terrible Photoshop job. But
you were so excited about doing that because you were like, look at what I just sent you on Facebook. Look at it.
All right. So, what do you...
Before we get into that, I just want to apologize. I'm getting over some weird allergy rhinitis type of shit. So if you hear me clearing my throat and David can't edit it out, that sucks. But just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
I apologize in advance.
Hey, but if they've been around with us long enough, they know we're not a professional podcast, and I can't cut out every outside sound that we get.
Right. But it'll probably be more so in this one.
Maybe.
Hopefully not.
So what is it you're going to be talking about this week, Sarah?
I am going to be talking about a urban legend, kind of urban legend, because there is truth behind it, out of Fairfax County in Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be very bouncy. You'll like it.
Very bouncy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to hop right into your heart.
And mine's kind of an urban legend, but there was actually proof of this, and it was actually covered. It wasn't really covered. It was the base inspiration for an episode of American Horror Stories.
I remember. Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember you saying something about it. Yes.
So, with that said...
As with most urban legends, where there is a story, there's at least a shred of truth. This statement alone is what makes the urban legend of the Bunnyman out of Fairfax County in Virginia downright creepy. It started with what Fairfax County archivist Brian Conley said. A creepy guy on Halloween, dressed oddly, throwing hatchets at people. It's just too bizarre to possibly be true, but it is.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
For over 4 decades, the Bunnyman legend captivated the northern part of Virginia. Connolly would first hear this tale when he was a young boy in the 1970s. It had popped up in 1973 in an undergrad paper at the University of Maryland. It was told and retold by numerous teens for many years. It was said you could call him out like you would Bloody Mary,
Or the Candyman.
Candyman, or Beetlejuice,
Yeah.
you know, by saying its name 3 times.
Right.
Over time, like a game of telephone, the legend would shift and pieces would change. But no matter how much it evolved, it always seemed to follow, like, these general lines. In the early 20th century, there was a asylum for the insane out in the deepest part of the woods. At some point, the asylum would close and the residents were loaded onto a bus and sent to Lorton Prison. While en route, the bus would swerve and crash. Most of the convicts on board escaped but wound up being caught again. All but one, Douglas Griffin. As the authorities searched for him, they stumbled upon a half-eaten and disemboweled group of bunnies, many of which were found hanging from the Fairfax Station Bridge, which would later be called Bunnyman Bridge.
Okay.
The search continued for months, but Griffin was never found. However, on Halloween night, numerous teens were hanging out beneath the bridge. As the clock struck midnight, they were attacked. The next morning, they were found hanging and disemboweled just like the bunnies from the bridge. To this day, locals tell the story that if you're at Bunnyman Bridge at midnight on Halloween, then you too will meet the same fate as the bunnies and the group of teens.
Like, I'm kind of like imagining the bunny from Five Nights at Freddy's at this point for some reason.
Do you get why I said it's very bouncy? And it'll hop into your heart. Yeah.
Energizer Bunny's gone mad.
He's pissed. His battery is on low. Now, remember me saying at the beginning of this that most urban legends, with their stories, there's usually a shred of truth?
Right.
Okay, so we just heard the story, the tale, the legend. Now we're going to hear truth.
Okay.
The legend is a lot more gruesome, but the truth is just as bizarre as, the legend is.
But of course, it has to be twisted to make it more interesting. It's like, I caught a fish this big, and it ends up being like 3 feet longer than it really was.
The Washington Post reported that Robert Bennett, an Air Force Academy cadet, and his fiancée were sitting in a car in Fairfax near his uncle's house around midnight on October 18th of 1970. He said, a man dressed in a white suit with long bunny ears appeared. He said whoever was in the costume yelled at him and his fiancée about being on private property and that he had their tag number. I'm assuming by tag number they meant like license plate.
Yeah. That would be my guess as well, too, because that's the only thing I can think of that would be a tag number other than like livestock cattle tags, but
Yeah.
I doubt that's it.
He then proceeded to throw a wood-handled hatchet through their windshield. Thankfully, neither Robert or his fiancée were harmed at all. Another article from the Washington Post would state that the Bunnyman would show up again about 2 weeks later on October 31st. Dun, dun, dun!
Who would have thought?
And he would be seen about a block away from where he confronted the couple that I just spoke about.
Okay.
Paul Phillips was a private security guard. He was the one to actually spot the Bunnyman holding an axe on the front porch of an unoccupied, brand new house.
Okay. Ralphie's gone mad.
Oh my god. Yeah. When I was doing the research on this, I was actually thinking of, the bunny thing from Donnie Darko. Have you ever seen Donnie Darko?
I have one time before, a long time ago. I
Like-
don't really remember a whole lot of it.
From start to finish?
Yes. But
Okay.
I don't really remember a whole lot of it.
It's been a while since I've seen it, too. We should try and find it somewhere and watch it.
Sure, it's probably available on Tubi or something somewhere.
Probably. I would assume anyways. Okay. But in the article, Phillips retold what happened, stating, I started talking to him and that's when he started chopping. He took several swings at a pole on the porch and then threatened me, saying, all you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you in the head.
You're not gonna shoot. You're not gonna shoot their eyes out.
No, we'll leave that to Ralphie. Fairfax County archivist Brian Conley was determined to make sense of it all, so he continued digging into it. He tracked down investigation reports from both the Fairfax County Police and was able to confirm that they were looking for a male in his late teens, possibly early 20s, dressed as a bunny. I don't know how they came about getting an age on this person being, in costume.
Right.
But anyways.
Probably because of height. Possibly body structure could be.
Maybe. He said after a very extensive investigation into this and all the other cases of the same nature, it is still unsubstantiated as to whether or not there really is a white rabbit. Therefore, the police moved the case to inactive.
Until...
Brian Conley also found the now married couple that had the hatchet tossed through their windshield.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't seem very keen on talking about the 45-year-old incident, but they remained sincere in the fact that this run-in actually did happen. They were able to share extremely vivid details. The aunt of the woman was also able to give details since she's the one that helped them out after the accident.
Right.
Or incident, rather, not accident.
Right.
She told Conley that she remembered combing glass shards out of her niece's hair from the windshield that got busted.
Yeah, but I mean, like, would you want to talk about having a hatchet thrown at you when you're trying to make out under a bridge or something?
By a bunny?
Yeah, by a giant man-sized bunny. I fucking wouldn't want to.
Like, who'd believe that shit?
Right. Grandpa, tell us about when the bunny tried to kill you when you were making out with Grandma.
Oh, man.
Anyway.
No one knows who the Bunnyman was or what motivated him. Conley is smart enough to know that any theory or story is pure speculation. However, he feels that it could be related to an elderly man that was known for being very angry. He was actually the guy that owned the property that the couple
Were parked on.
were trespassing on. Though he died a year or so before the first instance of the Bunnyman, so that wouldn't really make sense unless his spirit came back and was like, "Shit, take me to Party City so I can get a bunny suit."
Maybe.
But
they better hurry up because I guess they're going out of business.
I know. Also, with police stating the Bunnyman was in his early 20s in the 70s, he more than likely would still be alive today, but no one's come forward to, admit to being the Bunnyman.
It's like, yeah, why would you admit to that now? Because now you're like, oh, hey, we have an actual suspect we can charge for this cold case for the most part.
Yeah. As usual, the telephone game and years of decades of changing the story of the Bunnyman has overtaken the truth of what actually happened. There were no murders, there was no insane asylum, there wasn't even a bridge. Fairfax Station Bridge is seemingly just a local teen party area, although it is creepy looking if you look at it.
Yeah.
It just happened to get incorporated into the story for effect, I guess. Surrounding towns have truly embraced the legend, and they sell t-shirts, and of course there's a haunted house attraction inspired by the Bunnyman. But, anything to make that money.
So there's no, like, Bunnyman Festival or anything like that? Like,
Nope.
Churubusco has Turtle Days?
Nope.
That's
No
surprising.
Mothman Festival, no Bunnyman Festival, nothing like that.
That would probably be an interesting type of horror movie to watch. Like, the Mothman Festival or the Turtle Days or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like, the cryptid is actually stalking around, actually killing people during this.
Oh my god, yeah. There is a movie out called The Bunnyman. I don't know if it's specifically this story, but it's very similar if you read the premise of it. A hatchet wielding bunny guy going around, chopping heads and
Right. They're like, oh, great costume, Dan. Thump.
yeah. But that's it. That's the story of the Bunnyman.
That's it.
Yeah, I told you it was short.
I know, it was short.
Well, I told you I didn't tell them.
Oh, yeah. I feel like I've heard that story before somewhere, but
I don't know.
listened,
You may have.
I've listened to so many ghost stories and urban legends and cryptid stories that who knows, maybe just bits and pieces of it sounded familiar, and that's like in my head. Like I don't think this would count as a Mandela effect. That like I'm thinking I've heard this story, but I never actually did.
Like deja vu.
Yes, that's what I really mean. I don't know. Maybe I had deja vu of you telling me this story before. Maybe. I don't know. Anyhow,
What are you going to talk about?
I'm going to talk about, after I fix my mic here, I'm going to talk about, I kind of had this planned out as kind of a thank you to Kevin Carlton and Kevin Heyer of Dark Windows Podcast.
Yay, Dark Windows.
For their help in their beginning days of everything.
Yes.
But I'm sure they've already heard this story, being from the New England area themselves.
Well, they're going to hear it again.
I'm sure they will.
With the David spin.
With the David spin. So, you ready to hear about the New England vampire panic, Sarah?
I sure am. I sure am.
Okay.
I'll love me some vampires.
Ignorant, illiterate, unlettered, and uneducated. These are a few words you could use from the English language to describe people in the past because they didn't have scientific knowledge of what was happening into the world around them. From time to time, we hear people say, I sure do miss the good old days. It seems like people weren't as dumb then. When we learn about past events, they were a bit doltish. This might sound like I'm being a bit obtuse or thick-headed about this, but for a small period, the people of New England were foolish about what was killing people during an outbreak of tuberculosis. They believed that a staple of Halloween and countless movies was the cause of these deaths. After the Salem witch trials, a new panic struck New England. Not witches this time around, but vampires. The vampire panic started in Europe in the 1730s and have some pretty bizarre ways to protect themselves from vampires and ways to find them. In parts of Russia and Hungary, a quote-unquote pure boy, assuming that they mean a virgin boy with their wording of this time period, would have to ride through a cemetery on a pure black horse until it balked, which is like rearing up, acting skittish. If I'm wrong, some horse expert probably will criticize me, but anyway.
Did you say bucked?
Balked.
Balked. Okay. I heard it as balk, like a chicken. It looks like they balk. Okay.
It's a type of horse behavior.
Okay.
Probably like when you see a horse spooked in a horror movie, that's probably what a horse being balked.
Okay.
Horse balking is. But anyway. When a horse did this, they believed the vampire was nearby and it had to be destroyed. Suspected graves of vampires would be weighted or bolted shut, and in extreme cases, in vampire extermination, they would exhume the corpse, dismember it, and burn the corpse. And oddly, they would also chop up the suspected vampire and boil the parts in wine.
Ooh.
No sources found that they drank the wine. Don't know what the whole wine process was, even if it was like wine, sacramental wine that they would use in church for the show the body of Christ.
Oh.
I think that's what it's called, sacramental wine. But anyway.
I don't know. Not sacrificial.
No.
I don't know.
Serbians would protect themselves from vampires by eating and rubbing their bodies with the dirt from the grave of the suspected vampires, and even the classic stake through the body to keep them pinned in the resting place to keep the vampire from feeding. And what I would find slightly cartoonish, they would actually dig up the coffins and flip them lid facing down, so when the vampires would actually rise from the grave, they would just continuously dig deeper down into the earth instead of rising again.
God.
In the late 19th century, a tuberculosis outbreak struck the New England area. Tuberculosis was also known as consumption because it would appear as if the body was quote-unquote being assumed with the appearance of being withered away from the symptoms of it. Before I continue with this vampire panic, it might be best to kind of go over TB quickly so we would have a better understanding of why they believe the vampires were the cause of this.
Okay.
So that it makes more sense of why they believed this was vampires because of the symptoms of that.
Right.
So TB is actually caused by a bacterial infection known as Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which generally attacks the lungs and is spread by airborne droplets, usually with coughing. Mm-hmm. You release droplets in there when you cough. It's also known to attack the kidneys, the spine, and the brain. Tuberculosis isn't as contagious as the flu or the common cold is. You would have a higher probability of catching TB from a family member than you are a stranger.
It's the fuckers that you're locked in the house with.
Common signs of tuberculosis are coughing up blood, chest pains, coughing lasting more than 3 weeks, chills and fevers, no appetite, sweating at night, and weight loss. During the 19th century, tuberculosis was the cause of death in 1 out of 4 people. Today, over 1 million people still die from tuberculosis, according to the World Health Organization's website. Less than 200,000 cases are reported in the United States annually. Tuberculosis is treated with antimicrobials and given in 4 doses over 6 months. Now, with that out of the way, early New Englanders believed it was vampires who were killing off family members. I couldn't find a clear source on how they came to this conclusion of why. My guess is probably because of their appearance in the grave afterwards.
Oh, could be.
My best guess as to how they believed it to be vampires is the loss of appetite and weight loss would make someone appear as if they were withering away, and in turn it would make them think that the recently deceased from tuberculosis returning to feed on the next family member that became ill.
So they really aren't that bright. Weren't that bright?
No, because they probably really didn't have a whole lot of understanding of tuberculosis at this time. There are multiple cases of the New England vampire panic, but I will focus on one of the most famous ones of 19-year-old Mercy Brown, as a majority of these cases is similar to hers and how they would stop their vampires.
How old was she?
She was 19 years old when this happened.
Okay.
Mercy Brown was the second oldest daughter of George and Mary Eliza Brown. George Brown was a respected farmer in Exeter, Rhode Island, where they resided. Mary Eliza would be the first of the family to die from tuberculosis in 1883, followed by Mary Olive, their oldest daughter, in 1884. In 1891, Mercy and her brother Edwin would both contract tuberculosis. Friends and neighbors of the Brown family gossiped that the Brown family had fallen victim to a vampire. Their neighbors tried to convince George to dig up his family members since they believed they were vampires, but George refused to believe this superstition. Because, like I said, they already knew about the ways of stopping the vampire traveling over from Europe, so yeah. I didn't think I felt the need to have to repeat those again. When Edwin, Mercy's brother, contracted TB, he would actually go to Colorado to attempt to treat his tuberculosis at a wellness center in Colorado Springs. Mercy passed from her illness of tuberculosis in January of 1892, and her brother Edwin would return the same month after his treatments in Colorado weren't having any improvements on his illness. In the time it took Edwin to receive the news of his sister Mercy passing and his return to Rhode Island, the town folks would say they saw Mercy walking in the fields and in the cemetery after her death.
Oh.
This would fuel the vampire theory in their town, and Edwin would say that he would also see and feel Mary's presence of him sitting on his chest after his return from Colorado.
Like he felt her sitting on his chest? Damn.
Yeah. George didn't want to see another family member die from the infected family members, so he finally did give in to the beliefs of the vampires on March 17th, 1892.
Oh no, George.
No, George, don't do it! Even by this time, doctors did have a clear understanding of what was causing tuberculosis. Like I said before, that was before in earlier Europe in times of tuberculosis. They didn't have the understanding of it.
Right.
But the town of folks wanted reassurance about Mercy being a vampire or not. With the local doctor and the local news reporters and townspeople watching as their bodies were exhumed, the physician observed standard decomposition in the bodies of Mary Eliza and Mary Olive. But Mercy's body showed minimal decomposition. The doctor observed her... Definitely fucking saving that shit. I don't know, maybe this will be the end clip because I needed a fucking filler. It reminds me of like the opening movie, I think of like Hot Shots Part 2, where they're like typing out this whole assassination of president, like who they're having person type out assassinate, can't spell it, and he keeps doing it backwards and backwards and just changes it to kill the president.
It took me back to, oh my god. Trying to hear Amy say the name of Rhonda and Tammy. They lived on Rural Street, okay? Mm-hmm. She's like, it's desolate. That's what that shit.
I don't know, maybe I'll just leave this whole fucking section in the middle of here.
Oh my god.
Okay, let's try and... Okay. Now that we got that out, maybe I can say the fucking word.
Try.
The physician... Oh, hey, there we go.
Hey!
Hey! All right. The physician observed her hair had grown out as long as her fingernails had as well. The physician... So we're going to try this one more time.
Okay.
The physician observed her hair had grown out as well as her fingernails. Then also that her cheeks were rosy and her body was not in the same position as she was buried. The physician discovered blood in her heart and her liver as the physician removed them to create this elixir for Edwin to drink after seeing Mercy in her current state, of which they believed was her being a vampire.
Did they not understand what your body does after death?
Apparently not at this time.
Okay.
And I was actually to get into that. People believe that consuming the ashes of the heart and liver mixed with water would put a stop to being preyed on by these vampires.
Ew.
Unfortunately, Edwin would finally succumb to tuberculosis in May of the same year. Now, so here are some things on what gives the appearance of vampires. The truth is, her hair and her fingernails didn't grow after death.
What?
Yeah, I know. So, I'm sure you know this already. Yeah. But after you pass away, your skin actually starts to shrink up, and it creates the effect of new nail growth. So,
illusion.
Mm-hmm. And the skin of her gums would also start shrinking. So, this would make your canine teeth have a much longer appearance, which is associated with vampires. Because, vampires, that's the first thing you think of, is the long teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And if, depending on how far back you think of vampires, you start thinking of Nosferatu going up the stairway, or when he first appears on screen.
Yeah.
The most classic vampire of them all. What?
Are you forgetting Bela Lugosi's vampire?
Nosferatu predates Bela Lugosi.
I know, but you said he's the most popular.
Oh no, we might have a problem here in the middle of the fucking Emporium floor today.
Oh, we might.
Anyhow, so these townsfolk also didn't take in consideration the time of year that she's buried in this above ground crypt.
Let me guess. Winter.
Yes, like it stated, she died in January.
Oh yeah, that's true. You did.
So the cold weather would actually slow decomposition, being stored in this above ground crypt since the ground is frozen at the time of her death. Obviously, so they're not digging.
Yeah.
You don't have the equipment to dig through solid dirt like we do today.
Yeah.
And with the rosy appearance in her face would be that when your blood is starting to decompose, it actually would create heat, which would make your cheeks look flush again.
Oh.
So usually when they would go to do these undigging of vampires, would be at night, because that's when they're going to wake up,
Well, of course.
Strike at dawn, basically, for the vampire. So, but we're doing it at night at Lantern. But I'm going to read this as I originally wrote it.
Okay.
Just because Kevin has actually called us weird in here in Indiana. But those weirdos in Vermont would actually make this more of a public display of this with a festive type atmosphere. In South Woodstock, Vermont in the 1830s, the heart of alleged vampire Frederick Ransom would be burned on the town green. And hundreds would also flock to Manchester, Vermont for a ceremonial type burning of another alleged vampire by the name of Rachel Burton, which her heart was burned in a blacksmith's forge. According to the folklorist Michael Bell, that has actually documented over 80 vampire exhumations.
Damn, really?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, one of these New England vampire graves was found in Connecticut during what law enforcement first believed to be the remains of a serial killer victim's Michael Ross, that was known also as the Eggman or the Roadside Strangler.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard that name before.
Yes, I have.
Okay. Some children were playing near a hillside gravel mine where they had found these 4 graves, and one of the children had ran home to tell their mother, who didn't believe them at first until he produced a skull from one of the graves.
Oh, shit. Mom loved that, didn't she?
Yeah. Oh, Well, look what we found. We found Grace. I know you did it. Well, look what I got.
Now, if you're the kind of mom that both of my sisters
Yeah.
are, they'd be like, that's fucking sweet.
Right.
Let's do something with it. One be like, let's make it artsy. The other one would be like, fucking death. Let's keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so the police taped off the area quickly, like I said, as they believe this was the work of Michael Ross or the Eggman. But the browning of the bones actually proved that these bones were much older. A state archaeologist determined that they were actually a colonial era farm cemetery that they came from. Grave number 4, as it was documented, was the grave in question of being a vampire because the bones were actually rearranged to resemble the Jolly Roger that you see on pirate flags.
Okay.
And the ribs were crushed in from the archaeologist's report. They didn't give the name of said archaeologist. They just said where they came from. And to close this out, I had mentioned this previously before. I completely forgot about the story until we were watching American Horror Stories.
Yeah.
And the episode Milkmaids came on, and some of the similarities between that and this triggered in my head.
Yeah.
It's been out long enough. If you find any of this a spoiler, that's on you. If you haven't watched it yet, you've had more than enough time.
Yeah. True that.
The episode of American Horror Stories, Milkmaid, as I just mentioned, is very similar to the Vampire Panic of New England as well. In this episode, there's an outbreak of smallpox instead of tuberculosis, and the pastor of the town that the main character lives in, he heard from a neighboring town that there was reports of the dead rising from the grave and feasting on living family members.
Lovely.
And unlike the actual vampire panic, where they would make this elixir from burning the heart and the liver using the ashes and mixing it in water, they would actually eat the hearts of the dead to protect themselves from the disease.
Ooh.
In reality, they're actually giving themselves the disease.
Well, like we've already said that
Right.
they weren't smart, so.
Right, and then remember, the one milkmaid tried to stop people from doing it, but they didn't want to hear her because she's just a milkmaid. She's like lower than dirt, basically.
Yeah. But
After,
apparently smarter than them.
Yep. But after the pastor and the main character perform this ritual of sorts, the main character points out to the pastor that the townspeople might suspect them of witchcraft for their newfound health, and they should tell them what they have done as well.
Okay.
So that's where the rest of the townsfolk starts digging up their family members and doing the same of the sorts as well too.
That's really gross.
Yeah. It's still a thing, but thankfully with modern science and medicine that we don't have to resort to folklore ways of
Taking care of weird diseases.
Weird diseases and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess I know I've mentioned it before in other episodes how people are like saying, "Oh, it was so much better in the past." Clearly, this is one of those cases that was not. And so maybe also with our Victorian episode as well, with some of the jobs that I covered in that,
What was your favorite job from that episode?
From that one, I still wouldn't want to be a pure finder.
Oh, hell no.
I'd say probably a crossing sweeper would probably be the best option out of it, even though some of the drawings from the time they'd see like hundreds of them, like not hundreds of them, but tens of crossing sweepers. So, huge competitive market with it, but
I'd have to say that was probably my favorite one too.
But
Probably because you sang.
no. Toss a coin to your sweeper, oh Victorian wealthy. Anyway, the first rendition was way better than that one.
They're both great.
I don't know. Maybe I'll have to cut that into the intro again now.
Yep.
And so, anyhow.
This is going to be a very short one.
Yeah. You're reminiscent of episode 1.
Yep. Well, it is what it is.
I mean,
Won't have much to edit.
well, you were sick, so I didn't want to pressure you too much into doing research and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So thankfully we had these old scripts that we kind of
Heck yeah.
mothballed for staying consistent for everybody.
Yeah. You're welcome, people.
Yeah,
People
so
of the Emporium.
can't really call them patrons because of
Nope.
there's Patreon.
What would they be?
I don't know.
Should we name our people?
I don't know. Maybe we should now that we got
Ooh.
14 episodes. Or
Maybe we'll have to put a poll on the Facebook group.
Yeah, I
And
was
if you
gonna-
want to suggest what you would like to be called, you can add it. And if you want to vote, well, you'll have to go to the Facebook page.
No, that's Facebook page. It's a Facebook group.
Well, yes, the Facebook group.
So I don't know. With that said, maybe it's time we close the Emporium up for today.
I agree.
And then so until next time.
Remember to creep it real. Our website is live. Make sure you check it out at macabreemporiumpodcast.com. And join our Facebook group and follow us on Twitter at Macabre Emporium. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube at Macabre Emporium Podcast. And if you have any stories of the paranormal, true crime, whether it be local or a story you may have heard, weird history you want us to look into and possibly do an episode on or include within an episode, email us at macabreemporiumpod@gmail.com. And remember to follow, rate, review, and share wherever and whenever you can and help us grow our little baby podcast.
These are a few words you could use from. These are a few words you could use from many. What the fuck did I write? Apparently, I'm one of those first four fucking words. These are a few words you could use from. Oh, because I forgot to put the fucking words English language in there.